Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate this. To kick things off right off the bat with current affairs, in February, we've been reading a lot about vaccine diplomacy, India sending the AstraZeneca to Mexico. What can you tell us about reception on the ground and what happened behind those?
Well, Mexico purchased from the Serum Institute based in Pune the AstraZeneca vaccine that is being made there called Covishield.
Right.
We bought a total of is 2 million, a little bit more than 2 million doses, and the first shipment was going to be in February, 870,000. And this was received in Mexico on February 14th, and it was the first large shipment of vaccines that arrived in Mexico that were ready to be used. Because we have also received other vaccines, but some of them are being bottled in Mexico, or for example, we're working with Argentina also to produce some of the AstraZeneca vaccine in Mexico, and that is still being done, so it's not ready for application. Since then, or before and since, we have also purchased the Russian vaccine, the Sputnik, and 2 of the Chinese vaccines, Pfizer also, but there was a little gap there because Pfizer at one point stopped shipments not only to Mexico but worldwide. And of course we're also working with this multilateral entity, COVAX, to get some of the vaccines also in that regard. But obviously we're very pleased and very grateful to the Indian authorities, because as you know, even though this is a commercial agreement with the Serum Institute to purchase the vaccines, it has to be the Indian government who has the final authority to allow the shipment to leave India to travel to the different destinations that it has been going to. As you well know, India has been sending many vaccines as donations to many countries, and in other cases, like in our case, it's been vaccines that we have purchased that were bought at the commercial price. And we're still waiting for the second shipment of the remaining 2,100,000, something like that, of the vaccines, which may not come in March as was originally planned, but also actually in April. The CEO of Serum Institute has told us that they've had a problem in satisfying the demand, precisely because they're satisfying the domestic demand here in India, the demand that the government of India has had in terms of donating some vaccines in its policy of vaccine diplomacy, and thirdly, of course, the commercial engagements that it has. So that's the stage where we are right now.
Your Excellency, you brought up India and China within this context, and over some time, quietly, you will note that India and China have been expanding their footprint somewhat in the region. What could you tell us about the engagement on both fronts, and what do you expect in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, what we're looking for is for India to expand its footprint in Latin America. Not only in Mexico, but in Latin America. With Mexico, things are going fairly well. We have become, in the past few years, India's the first trading partner in Latin America, the second in the Americas only after the United States. And India has become one of our top 10 trading partners in the world. So obviously, we have an intense presence also, which can be exemplified by the fact that there's over, close to 80 Indian businesses that are set up in Mexico, and about 200 which indirectly are doing business with Mexico. So that's, quite a significant footprint. One can say it's never enough, and we're obviously trying to expand the presence of India in Mexico. We're very happy, and I think that the Indian businesses that are in Mexico, which range, broad rainbow of products, and they're doing well. Some of them are expanding. Some of them are, are looking to solidify their position in the Mexican market. But obviously, we're also interested in India having a larger footprint in the region. As you probably know, this past January, India announced that it was opening 2 additional embassies in the region, in the Dominican Republic and in Paraguay. And that's important. I think that sometimes when I see some of the events that are taking place here in India, of different sorts, many times there's a black hole in the agenda, which is Latin America.
Right.
It sort of, almost never exists. Last year, for example, in the Raisina Dialogue, there was one guest from Latin America, which was a Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs from Mexico. We were very happy about that. But we talked with the organizers, and we told them, you have to, if you're going to talk about the world and world trends and what's happening in terms of climate change or financial trends, development issues, etc., you cannot do this without putting Latin America in the picture. So obviously, I think that not only myself, but all of the ambassadors from Latin America are pushing more and more to have not only the government of India, but different institutions of NGOs, think tanks, etc., to consider, having more of a presence with Latin America, studying more about Latin America, learning more about Latin America. And so we see the possibility of India as having a larger footprint in the region as a positive development. But coming back to your question, this is not necessarily something as a counterbalance to to the Chinese presence in the region, which of course has been considerable, especially in Central and South America, not so much in Mexico. And I think that there is a value in and of itself for India to have a closer relationship with all of us, and we're all very eager to have a larger and more productive and varied relationship with India. So hopefully in the future, as we move ahead, and as India, I think assumes more of an active role in international politics, that Latin America will be part of the overall strategy.
Your Excellency, you raised an important issue, which was climate change during the course of your dialogue. One very pertinent issue which has been cropping up is the fact that because of climate change and because of the super cycles of climate in Central America, we're seeing a rapid wave of increasing migration every year, which goes through Mexico.
Yes.
Many of Mexico's areas are facing a rapid stress on their resources. And similarly, it's facing political stress from the United States to take action. Considering that this is in essence a global issue, what would be your message to the global community and to India when it comes to these drastic effects of climate change?
Well, the message is there and has been there for some time. As you probably know, in correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was in December 2018, there was a conference in Morocco to deal with the issue of migration. Because migration cannot be tackled by any country in isolation. It is, as climate change, migration, and other issues, they require a multilateral response. And health issues nowadays, we've seen that, in isolation, nobody can do anything that would be effective. So the sort of the growing global consensus is that we have to deal with migration in an orderly fashion, make it safe for the migrants, and also make sure that whatever is taking place will be almost a win-win situation for the migrant and for the receiving country. This is now, as I said, was the developing global consensus, but Mexico has espoused this type of policies for a very long time because, of course, we have been, historically speaking, a country that has been sending migrants to the north, and also a country of transit of migrants coming from the southern part of the hemisphere. And this is something that, of course, in our region, we have tried very firmly to address, especially with the United States, which is by and large the final destination of most of these migrants. Recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't remember the exact date, President Biden spoke with President Lopez Obrador. They had a video conference, and this was one of the issues that was talked about. And the thesis that Mexico has espoused is that we have to infuse resources for economic development, which is the main reason why migration happens. Of course, we can talk about political stability and other considerations, but if you have greater development, which also addresses the consequences of climate change, which affects agriculture, for example, then you will give people the option of staying back home instead of making the hazardous journey of migration through different South Central American countries, Mexico, and then onto the United States, crossing the border, which is always a problematic issue. So this is something that we hope that in the foreseeable future we will be able to work together, the United States, as well as countries like Mexico, the Central Americans, and some in South America, together to address this issue. As it is already, Mexico has poured a significant amount of resources to different social programs in Central American countries. And mind you, this is making an important sacrifice on the Mexican side, because we don't have that much money to go around. But nevertheless, we are quite conscious that unless we address the problem at its source, then it's going to continue to be a problem for all of us. So this is what we're doing about that.
Your Excellency, another point which you had raised regarding political stability in the region.
Yeah.
Mexico stands out as one of those countries which have, over the last, say, 20 or 30 years, built up its political stability, its internal security, and today is a beacon of hope of sorts in the entire region. Considering that Latin America in its entirety is undergoing a period of massive upheaval, whether it's Venezuela, recently it was Chile, Central Americas, what is the scenario for Mexico there? How is it seeing developments playing out in Latin America, and what is it doing about it?
Well, I think that what you say is quite right. I think Mexico has experienced a very significant development of the establishment of democratic institutions and greater stability in the country. This has not been, of course, without its obstacles sometimes, and ups and downs, certainly, and we do as much as we can to be constructive when it comes to the other countries in Central and South America, to address the issues that they're facing, be them of an economic nature or a political nature. As you know, sometimes these issues, polarize the region, and some countries are not speaking to each other because of this situation. I think Mexico's approach has been, or has tried to be, constructive. We have done so in the Organization of American States in trying to address these delicate questions of which are, after all, internal issues of the respective countries. And this is something that we have done in the past. We will continue to do it, and we have done recently, and we will continue to do in the future. I think respecting each country's sovereignty and the people's own sovereign rights to determine whatever they decide. But of course, it is in everybody's interest to have a region that is stable, that is growing, that is prosperous in every possible way. I think that what you have seen, many times, coming back to what I was saying, how sometimes, in other parts of the world they don't think too much about Latin America. It is because Latin America really has not been too much of a problematic area. And with its ups and downs, it's been a region that has had relative positive growth. excuse me, and as well as a democratic development over the past few decades. I mean, if we look at what the history of the region was back in the 70s or earlier to where we are right now, there's been a very significant advance. We hope that we can keep up the momentum towards the future.
So you're the economist. You had a very specific question about Mexico and economic growth and the economic turnaround.
Definitely.
And I think this is a good place to tee off on that.
One of the success stories, so to speak, of recent, when it comes to the global economic discourse, is recognizing the fact that countries such as Bangladesh and Mexico, they have climbed back from position of economic chaos as it was in the 60s and 70s to a position of rapid economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
Increasingly, they're being looked at as the future engines of economic growth for not just themselves, but the entire world. How did Mexico do this? How did Mexico emerge from a country which was looked down upon with a very negative light when it comes to, say, the economic world, when it comes to academicians, theoreticians, to now someone to be even emulated?
Well, I would say that, let me try to put this in context. I think that we've had some serious pitfalls in our economic development. Certainly, we had it in the 70s, also in the 80s, and then again at the beginning of the 90s, where we had economic crises that were very, very significant, and which affected to a large extent Mexico, or originated in Mexico for different reasons. And of course, we've also been part of global upheavals such as the 2008 economic crisis. Having said that, I think that Mexico, kind of sets itself up to a road of economic prosperity and development. I think, from the early 90s, actually just at the same time when we had this economic downturn that was very serious in 94, 95, and that was the signing of the North American Free Trade Agreement. It was the recognition that, we have a very important economic relationship with our neighbors to the north, the United States and Canada, and consolidated this agreement, which in its day was a landmark event in many ways. And the agreement was not renegotiated, but it was updated, and some aspects were renegotiated in the last year, and it was finalized last summer and signed again and ratified by the three legislative bodies of the three countries last June, July. So this, and what this has done is that this, first of all, has created because now, of course, there's there's a Pacific Agreement on free trade, but this was, the largest economic zone in the world. That was one important aspect. The second one is that it was a success story. There was tremendous growth. The external sector of Mexico's economy became a powerful engine of growth for Mexico, excuse me, but also, as you say, for other countries. And it also has made Mexico, of course, a very attractive place for foreign investors because, for example, like some of the Indian companies that have set up investments in Mexico, they are benefiting, of course, of this free trade area that includes the largest market in the world still, which is the United States, and of course Canada. And Mexico also, which has a very dynamic internal market. So all of this I think, has made a significant difference. And also Mexico, not only in North America, we have signed a large number of free trade agreements which encompass something like 40-some countries around the world. And all in all, in the reach that we have through our free trade agreements is almost equivalent to the population of India itself. Almost 1,300,000,000 people are included if you add up all of the countries with which Mexico has a free trade agreement. So the attractiveness of Mexico for seen from outside is that this is a country that provides a platform of growth that is very, very important and continues to be that way. And of course now, we also have engaged in other mechanisms which have been important, for example, the Pacific Alliance with Colombia, with Peru and Chile. We've become, if you take the four countries together, we're the 8th economy of the world. So that's a very, very significant way of looking at things. So all of this, of course, has creating a dynamic situation that makes Mexico very attractive and that hopefully will keep Mexico growing in the foreseeable future.
So you alluded to the 1990s peso crisis.
Yes.
And we're living in a time of economic crisis as we speak right now as well.
Of a very different nature.
Of a very different nature, yes. But the memories of 2008 are still pertinent when it comes to most countries.
Right.
And we are seeing what some people would call a populist backlash across many large economies, particularly developed ones. In this regard, many countries, including the United States, have tried to renegotiate free trade agreements, and some countries are even showing signs of hostility to it. In this regard, when it comes to international financial governance, countries such as India and Mexico, we've been trying hard and bargaining hard to keep this open order going, to make sure that the fruits of globalization reach as big a population as possible. In this regard, how is Mexico stepping up when it comes to its diplomatic efforts for this international financial governance? How do we deal with it?
Well, we certainly, we have been working very hard to guarantee economic stability across the board, and this is something that we're very keen on, because of course we know that how it can affect us very severely, if it does, and we're working, through different channels and different institutions. Which include, of course, mechanisms like the OECD, for example, that was presided by, or still is presided by a Mexican, until recently now an Australian is going to be the successor of Mr. Gurria. But we have also been working with the other multilateral financial institutions to guarantee financial stability around the world. Again, this is one of those issues that requires a common effort, a common purpose of how to approach these issues, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid crises, global crises like the ones we had in 2008. I think that one of the important lessons or outcomes of this crisis actually is that I think in many cases we have been intelligent enough to learn from them, and therefore to create buffers in order to avoid what has happened before. Now this is no guarantee of something unexpected happening again, because of course this is a rapidly evolving situation, and in the financial world, the financial world of the early 90s is very different from the one today. So the recipes or the mindsets that we had in those days as to how to deal with these issues are not necessarily the ones that will work today. But we need to keep, evolving, and as I said, working together, keep open channels of dialogue, and we are convinced that, I think certainly in Mexico, because our example has been a proof that having an open economy and an economy that reaches out to the rest of the world is beneficial certainly to us, and we think that it could be beneficial to other countries.
Staying on the international governance feature, both Mexico and India, we are non-permanent members of the Security Council as we speak.
Correct.
What is Mexico's agenda on the world stage when it comes to this position?
Well, this is very good. Let me say that first of all, that we're working closely with India in this regard. We have been consulting with our Indian friends since before we entered the Security Council as non-permanent members, and we're still working together with them on a number of issues. There's sometimes I know it sounds very not like anything new or anything groundbreaking to say that some of the things that we're working on is issues of peace and stability and guaranteeing this kind of things. And as I said, they sound like, this is what everybody's been saying for the past few decades, but it's still equally valid today. A few issues that are different is how we're focusing on that. For example, we're focusing on the question of gender quite a bit. The role that women can play in creating situations of stability and peace in areas where there has been conflict. We're focusing on the fate of children or minors in conflicted situations, which is again something that is very, very important and very critical. We're focusing on the issue of arms transfers, and we're not talking necessarily of large weapons or nuclear weapons, even though that is certainly important, but also small weapons. Because this is something, certainly in the case of Mexico, that has devastating consequences. And we're trying to get the world community to focus more on this, on this issue, and how this market for small arms is also a destabilizing influence and a source of conflict in many countries. We're also working on issues, certainly we're supportive of questions like, that India is very vocal about, like questions of terrorism, for example, in a broad sense of an approach to, combat terrorism and fight something that of course is so alien to any one of us. So these are some in very general terms some of the issues that we're dealing with. We had recently Mexico held at the Mexican Initiative. We held a session having to do with under what is called the Arya formula in the Security Council on the question of how to create situations of stability and in conflict situations. And it was very well received, and it was there was quite a very good feedback that we got from that. Some of these issues, even though they may be old in the agenda, that does not mean that they're not equally valid today. So we really need to keep focusing on that, as well as, of course, being forward-looking and to see how we can move ahead to create conditions of stability and peace around the world. After all, that's the mandate of the Security Council. It's there's other organs of the UN that can do many other things, and they do, some of them do very well. We've also worked, we've talked in the Security Council on the question of the fair distribution of the vaccines, which is coming back to an issue that we started with, because we also feel that if you don't do that, you're creating a gap around the world, and that this can also have destabilizing consequences. And therefore, we need to be aware that something that maybe not too many people are thinking about, but that the equitable distribution of vaccines around the world and within the countries around the world is very, very important for world stability.
Well, Your Excellency, we'd like to thank you for being very candid with us. We'd like to give you the last couple of minutes, give you the floor. If there's anything you would like to discuss, any message for any Indian audience?
Well, the only thing that I would say is that we're very happy with the way that the relationship with India is moving ahead. We have had since 2016 a privileged relationship, what's called a privileged relationship between Mexico and India, and we're working towards the establishment of a strategic relationship in the foreseeable future. But more than going beyond titles, one of the things that we're trying to do is to have a closer, a deeper, and broader relationship with India across the board. we've had, we've talked a little bit about trade and some of the issues on the international agenda, but we're also, trying to focus a lot on cultural aspects, on people-to-people contact. We're trying to increase tourism flows between, Mexico and India. We're trying to increase the academic cooperation. We're trying to work together on issues of innovation and, technological advances, of which India, of course, is doing fantastic things. So, the agenda is very broad, and we certainly think that a country like India and a country like Mexico, which are regional powers in their own right, and of course also have a global perspective, can work together and work closer in the future for the benefit of respected people, but also for the benefit of the international agenda. So this is, I think, not necessarily a message, but this is more or less, what I wanted to convey to the Indian audience, that this is where we are, and we hope that we'll be able to have the full cooperation of our Indian friends in achieving this goal.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.